So final preparations, what we've got to do now is to create some directories for the Linux from scratch system. So before we go on any further, because these commands use the LFS variable, I'm just going to double check that that's still set, which it is. So I'm going to put in each of these commands. Okay, so this mouse button likes to repeat. You can copy and paste these all at once, but I try not to because, and I advise not to if you're new to Linux from scratch, because the last thing you want to do is to put a load of commands in and miss one of those commands not completing correctly, or some error comes out. So it's a little bit onerous copying and pasting one at a time, but it's a lot safer if you want to ensure your build goes successfully. So I've created some default directories, we can list them. There's the root of the new LFS system, and you can see we've got a few more directories there now just created. What we're going to do now is create a group for an LFS user, which we'll use to build the initial part of the Linux from scratch system, and create a user as well called LFS, and we'll change the password for that user to something memorable. And then we're going to give that user full access to all the directories under LFS so that we can do stuff, including installing some of the new packages for the temporary system. It does say here on some host systems that this SU command does not complete successfully. We're just about to do, which has happened sometimes to me, but funnily enough, since this note appeared in the book warning about that, it's not happened to me since, but it's probably going to happen now I've said that. No, it has still worked, but something to bear in mind. It tells you what to do there. So as you see, it's given us a prompt as the LFS user now, so we're not root anymore. We've currently dropped into a subshell as the LFS user. So now we're going to set up an environment for the LFS user that's useful to use for building the initial LFS environment, LFS system. And there's lots of explanations there about all those settings. If you're on a multi-core processor, then compiling using as many of those cores as possible is useful, and we can set a variable called make flags, which make recognizes. Now I haven't got 32 cores on here, unfortunately. I've only got 4 cores. There are only a few packages that will utilize a lot of the cores. There are some packages that seem to be hardwired to use 4 cores. A lot just compile so quickly, there's very little advantage in having many cores, but the packages that do take a long time to build, such as GCC is the one that will take the longest, will take advantage of multiple cores. So it is definitely useful to set this up to specify the number of cores. We can even set the bash rc file to set this variable for make to read the number of cores as reported by the system using the nproc command. So now if we source the bash profile, we should find that if we echo make file, that hasn't worked for some reason. Let's log out and re-enter, it might read that. It's not make file, is it? It's make flags. I think I'm thinking of my Gen 2 head then. Make flags. Yep, there it is. It's been set correctly. So some information there about SBUs and how they work. There's also information there about setting the power profile, which may make some difference. I don't think it makes a great deal of difference, but I will set that or check that just to get every last bit of power out of the system as possible, or performance rather when I say power. So if we go to power management, let's turn the sleep off. When inactive, do nothing. Dim, I'll turn that off as well because I'll be showing everything as I normally do in my videos. So that's the power management, so it shouldn't slow down there at all. Let's check this here, low level. Okay, there's nothing there. There's some other information here about setting a power profile control. So it looks like we're on balanced at the moment, or the alternative is power saver. So I think I probably want to leave it on balanced. So I won't touch that. It says about how the times presented are based on Binutils Pass 1, which is timed using 1 core, and the rest are based using 4 cores. So it's kind of a moot point as to what the timings are, because machines vary wildly in terms of hardware and capabilities. I always suggest to use the SBUs as a very rough guide, and rough in that, will it take a few minutes to build, or is it going to take hours to build? So something about test suites here. I always recommend running test suites. They're generally in the chapter 8 part of the build where we're building the real system. The reason why I recommend them, even though there are some tests that produce errors, generally the book tells you where the errors are expected. It might be a bit unnerving to get errors, but it's the only way of knowing of whether you are building a system that's useful or not. You could be blindly building packages that do build but are producing rubbish, that produce a system that you can't carry on building at some point, or you come to build the system and it doesn't work properly. There's some funny behaviors. So by running the tests and investigating anything that you're not happy about, although it takes a lot longer to do the build, you've got confidence in what you're building is a suitable build.